All right, so we're back. I have kind of a lot to teach you, I feel like, if that makes sense.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I'm sure you saw, like, just in general, going to space has been the topic of headlines everywhere. I think a lot of it has to do with SpaceX, obviously, and Elon consistently talking about colonizing Mars.
Yep.
What would you say, last 5 years that's really, like, blown off?
Plenty of time. I mean, yeah, humans need to be an interplanetary species. That's the halo sentence I keep hearing. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's a little more intense than what we're about to talk about. But in this past week, a big news headline, I think it was like 2 or 3 days ago, was Richard Branson and Virgin Galactic making it to space. And
I was peripherally aware that this is happening. I wasn't following it specifically. I was traveling. I was playing Ultimate, but I think I was in a restaurant and I saw it on TV.
Okay.
Like it was just happening somewhere. Richard Branson went to space. Oh, okay. Got it. Cool. All
yeah.
right.
So the first thing I'm still struggling what to call this. I like whenever I think about space, I want to call it space travel, but to me that feels like something more along the lines of like I'm traveling between places in space, which this is very much not.
Space tourism.
Okay, that's what we'll call it.
Yeah.
Space tourism.
Yeah.
So I'll explain a little more the like scientific name of what they're doing, but that's just not fun to say over and over again.
Okay.
All right. So like you, I kind of just peripherally saw this I saw it on Twitter instead.
Okay.
It was this really cool video of them like up in space. Richard Branson and I believe it's 5 other crewmates were in space, floating around, looking down on Earth, you know, like the typical in space thing. But what really like interests me is they showed footage of it launching up into the last couple like miles into the atmosphere, and it was like crazy. It looked really, really cool. It kind of reminded me of when we first saw the SpaceX rockets like re-entering and landing upright.
That looks surreal.
It looked literally fake, like
Yeah.
CGI. And that's what this kind of looked like. So it intrigued me enough to dive into a rabbit hole of trying to figure out what's going on in this kind of like, we'll call it a modern day space race, because Richard Branson's not the only one doing it. We all also know about Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin going up. There was actually a headline recently about them passing their last regulations, and they will be launching July 20th. So like, we're talking the same month, 2 people.
That's pretty
space tourism.
Is Jeff personally going also?
Yep. Jeff and his brother are going.
It's hilarious.
That's
hilarious.
That's all of that intrigued me. I watched a bunch of videos. I read a bunch of articles. The best one to me was from a channel called Everyday Astronaut. I'm sure you've heard of them.
Yep.
If you are a longtime fan of the channel, you've probably heard of them because we participated in something called Project Love Day, which was shooting a commercial for Tesla.
He made a great one.
He made a fantastic one. And,
was he a placement finisher at least? Right.
He was. I don't know if they did first, second, third. We won. I'm still very proud of that video. I liked it a lot. I rewatched it last night. Yeah. But if I'm being honest, I kind of think his should have won.
His was the favorite one that we didn't make, for sure.
I thought his was fantastic. But he made a wonderful, like, 30-minute video comparing Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin and everything that's going on. I will definitely link it and their Project Love Day in the show notes. You should check it out. I'm going to try and do a much more condensed but still pretty long explanation of what's going on, and I want to see your thoughts on it.
I'm excited. All I know right now is it's basically a race between these billionaires to get to space for bragging rights.
It is the billionaire midlife crisis, I think Adam described it as, and I thought it was hilarious. We're past Corvettes. We are now building spaceships as your midlife crisis. So
the bigger spaceship.
So if we get past the point that these are just a bunch of billionaires racing to get into space, the rest of it's really interesting.
Okay,
I think.
Sure.
Okay, so what kind of amazed me is how different, despite launching in the same month, how different both of these ways of getting into space are. And the big thing here that's different between SpaceX, which is going up and bringing people to like the space station and literally going into orbit, is these are suborbital rides.
Yeah.
Which is very, very different. These are not going high enough to actually get into orbit, hence the name. And while it's still breaking the barrier into what we consider space and getting into space, it is a very short ride into space.
Yeah, I think this is where I'm like, it's probably semantics, but like calling it going to space is maybe a bit generous. Like, obviously, planes are going up to, let's call it 30,000 feet. That's what, 6 miles up, something like that. But then you've got, other much more higher flying aircraft, military planes, other things like that, flying much, much higher in the atmosphere. But they're not in orbit in space. Like, when I think of in space, I think of like the space station orbiting the Earth 250 miles from Earth.
Yeah.
That's in space. So I'll give them that. So there's sort of a couple like, lines that have been drawn where you pass this line, what is it, 50 something miles?
Okay, so there's something called the Cameron line, which is like widely known as the start of space, and that's 60 miles above the Earth's surface.
Okay. And so then, but you're still not orbiting the Earth. You can do a temporary free fall and have that weightless feeling, but you're not orbiting the Earth at that height. So so they're just getting past that line just for bragging rights? Is that what's happening?
Sort of. That's one of the key differences between the two, and I'll explain it. But let's see. So that got me a little off track, but I will get on track here. What we're going to do is I'm just going to kind of describe both of the ships to you.
So where do we start then?
I'm going to start with Virgin Atlantic. They did it first. Also, one little note I thought was funny. They weren't supposed to launch until August, or Richard Branson wasn't supposed to go until August. I think they were still doing test flights, and he decided to just go a little earlier.
I wonder why.
Yeah, I wonder why. Jeff Bezos right around the corner. He claims not for that, but like, come on. Also, just admit it. I think that'd be hilarious.
Just say it. I wanted to be Jeff.
I wanted to be
and
Jeff.
I did. Eat it, Jeff.
Yeah.
Let's just say it. Okay.
All right. So the Virgin Galactic spaceship, it is called the Spaceship Two Unity. And I still have a little confusion here because it's actually two separate vehicles in how they launch. So I believe the Unity is the name of the vessel that the pilots and the people are in. And one thing between these two, what's very different between them is that these are like for non-trained, like this is for commercialized space travel, tourism, whatever you want to call it. Whereas, NASA and SpaceX is much more like those people are trained to do stuff like that.
You have to be, yeah.
Yeah, so these
pedestrians can be in this.
Exactly. These are being made for the commercialized space tourism. So anyone can get a seat. And the plane for Virgin Galactic is, imagine almost two medium-sized planes, and they're connected at the inside wing. It almost looks like if you had a catamaran boat.
I think that's what I saw on the news.
Wing,
I saw
as a plane.
This crazy-looking like plane, but it was like three planes connected. It was a very strange sight, but
exactly.
Okay.
And then the one the people and the pilots are in is actually like underneath it in the middle.
Okay.
So if it then takes off, it flies to a certain altitude, which I still think was 2 or 3 times the altitude of what a regular plane flies at. So still very high. I think it is actually high enough to where you still see the dark edges around the Earth. Okay. So like that's pretty impressive. And then this is what got me interested in all of this. There's a video of the bottom craft. It detaches from the plane as it is flying, falls, rocket the thrusters, the boosters, whatever you want to call it. I'm sure there's an official name that I'm doing wrong. Take off, and it just launches past the initial docking plane, I guess you would call it.
Okay.
And then goes Mach 3, I believe, 3 times the speed of sound, straight up into the air and into space. And it looks like straight out of a James Bond movie. It looks like it was some sci-fi thing. Like it was another one of those, like the SpaceX rockets landing that no part of me believed it was real at first.
Yeah.
And then essentially what that accomplishes is after it detaches, launches into space, it gets you just high enough. I believe it's 55 miles above the Earth's surface. So not quite the Cameron line. And
all right, let me watch this. So what am I seeing?
Describe it also for audio listeners.
So I'm seeing the Virgin Galactic plane go up. It does really look like two planes attached to each other, which is pretty funny. Oh, there goes your speed, 600 miles an hour, 2,000 miles an hour. All right, this thing is popped out of the bottom of the plane and is now rocketing to 30,000 feet. That doesn't seem super
I don't think
high.
that is the...
Okay, now they're suborbital falling. Yeah, that part is cool. I like that you still can feel this. You can feel 0G, which is obviously super cool, but also the fact that you're so far out of the normal atmosphere that you can see the curvature of the Earth and you can see the space around the Earth.
You're definitely high enough that you're seeing the space around Earth. So that's what I think is like the big difference here, kind of between what you're talking about. Like there's no other airplane that's getting that high. And what it actually does is it launches itself straight up. And then if the wings, it almost looks like a paper airplane with the wings. It has these like very flat wings that go all the way to the back, and those turn and then use air compression to actually flip it kind of upside down. So then you're looking back at Earth because it has windows above the seats.
That's smart.
And then here's the kicker. It's only about 3 to 4 minutes that you're in space. You unbuckle yourself, you experience weightlessness for a couple minutes. They have these really cool windows that have like handles on them so you can, grab yourself because you're floating around once you're unbuckled. Grab yourself, look out the window, check out Earth for 4 minutes, buckle back in. And then because it looks like kind of a small private plane, then you come back down and you just kind of coast like a regular plane and land totally normally on an airstrip.
Honestly, it sounds pretty fun.
It does sound
pretty fun. So now the Jeff Bezos Blue Origin version, how is that different?
Very different. So the ship, it is the Blue Origin New Shepard is the name of the ship, and it is much more similar to what we expect as like a regular like NASA rocket.
A rocket.
It is, yeah. And I always get kind of confused about the rocket engine, I believe, is the large standing booster that sends the thing into space and generally comes back down to Earth. What's cool about this is essentially the passenger capsule is on top of the rocket. So imagine a rocket with maybe a little more of a circular top because that's where we're putting the passengers. Again, this is 6 people that can fit in here.
Okay.
The difference here is that it's fully autonomous. So in the other one, you need 2 pilots.
Interesting.
This is fully autonomous. Anyone in there doesn't need any training on how to land this capsule.
Okay.
So first, I think that sounds kind of freaky.
It sounds terrifying because you're like, what if something goes wrong? Who's going to save us? But
There are a lot of really cool safety measures that I don't remember everything about them. So I would check out the video if you get a chance.
Yeah.
But it's basically just this circular table, or not even a table, a circular like ring of seats looking at what is actually the largest windows to ever go to space. I think that's pretty cool, which makes total sense in like a tourism consumer fashion. Rocket launches up straight into the air. When it gets to its peak, the capsule detaches, throws you up around 62 miles in the air. So this is over the official Cameron line, which is definitely a bragging right. Although
because the other one, Richard Branson's, did 55. Not cross the line.
It didn't cross the Cameron line
technically,
but from everything I've read, most scientists agree that there's almost no discernible difference between the two when you're at that point.
Yeah, no, I'm sure the difference between 55 miles and 75 miles above Earth it's like
when you're starting to lose scale.
Exactly. It's very far, both of them, but okay. Yeah.
So that does bragging rights to Blue Origin. You're making it over the Cameron line. Exactly. Again, though, 3 to 4 minutes, you get up there, you can unbuckle, you can float around. And then what happens here is you start floating, you descend, 3 parachutes come out, you float back down into the desert of Texas, and then a bunch of air compressors shoot out at the bottom to make it like a really smooth landing, which I thought was actually really neat because these thrusters exert so much power to even you out. Actually, when you look at it, it looks like it's impacting really hard because dust is flying everywhere, but that's from the booster.
Yeah.
So much that if 2 of the parachutes were to fail, it would still get you down without life-threatening injuries, which probably still means it's pretty impactful, but you're not dying.
But yeah, good backup.
But yeah, another just capsule, you float up in the air, 3 to 4 minutes space. Again, pretty cool, I guess.
So here's a question. Here's my question for you. Is 3 to 4 minutes worth it?
Well, I guess we need the dollar value. Do you want the dollar value? Because
we have that.
Virgin Galactic sold 600 reservations already.
Okay, so how much is that? It's very expensive for the first
Take
ones.
a guess.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go with $10,000 a seat.
$250,000.
$250,000. So I guess the novelty of these early tickets is you're one of the first.
Yes. So less than 1,000 people have been up that high.
That's the novelty.
Ever.
That's what you're paying for.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're paying for.
Okay.
Actually, if you want to even go a crazier price, which is totally not comparable, Blue Origin doesn't have a price yet. I don't believe they've taken reservations. They've done a ton of test flights, and this one coming up will be the first time anyone's in it. It's Jeff Bezos, his brother. I don't know the other, but apparently one other seat was sold for them, and it was like $26 million. But this is, you're going up with Jeff Bezos and like all that, so I'm sure it's Clearly another
Oh man,
billionaire, probably.
dollars per minute. That's hilarious.
Dollars per minute.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's the other thing though, is the total flight trip of Blue Origin is like 10 to 15 minutes because you're just launching up and you're coming straight back down.
Yeah.
The total round trip for Virgin Galactic is closer to 2 hours because it takes you so long to ascend to that initial launch point, and then you're flying the whole way back down. So in some cases, it's maybe like, all right, I have more time to experience everything.
Honestly, when I'm hearing this described, I think the Virgin Galactic one sounds better, like as an experience. Like I'm not gonna do this anytime soon. Most of us probably won't. But if I'm imagining like, all right, I have this crazy amount of money I want to blow on the novelty of going to space. Both of them are going to give you 3 to 4 minutes of in space weightlessness, space tourism, that whole experience. But I think the flying up in an airplane part will probably be more comfortable than a rocket launch.
Yeah, they didn't talk much about like the initial thrusting and everything like that.
Like I feel like I've seen enough rocket launches to know that's a very different experience than flying up in a plane. I've flown in a plane. It's, maybe that's a little more comfortable. But then just having that crazy 3 to 4 minutes and then it's over. And then you just have to remember that forever. Maybe they'll record it like a Disney World ride or whatever.
Oh my god! And then what? Charge you $10,000 for
you land and they're like,
MP4 file?
Yeah, you spent $20 million on the ticket, so you got another $500,000 for this video of you.
Oh my god!
Yeah. Wow. Well, so in the future someday, like really far in the future, this will be just another theme park attraction, right? That's the goal. Like is you want to be able to do space tourism commercially, viably, repeatedly, often for everyone. Like, let's make space a curiosity that anyone can check out. Go to the zoo one day, go to Disney World one day, go to space one day. I don't know how far in the future that is, but that's something I'm optimistic about and like hoping I get to do someday. And I hope
everyone gets to,
as many people as possible get to try out. Thanks for watching this Waveform clip. If you want to subscribe to the Waveform Clips channel, which is what you're on right now, definitely do that below. Also, definitely make sure you watch the full episode. We always link that below on the main podcast channel. Also, listen anywhere. If you want to listen to some audio-only version, you can definitely do that.
You can.
And subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subliminal messaging. It's working, right? You hit the like button too, right? You hit it. Okay, cool. See you later.